Welcome to the Golden Pathway Zoom seminars. We are so excited to have you with us today to learn some more about the Kabbalah. We have changed our theme for this year to practicing spirituality, which will help us with last year's theme, which was increasing your light in the world. So we're very excited about that. And to start today with Anne Bethel from Australia, and she's going to talk about the Kabbalah and the Sefirot. And so some people believe Kabbalah says that the world was created and sustained by 10 channels of divine energy, and those are called the Sefirot. They're on the tree of life, and you were at service this morning, we talked about the tree of life too, which was a really great tie into our seminar. Okay. So these Sefirot are depicted pictorially on the tree of life and provide a toolbox for spiritual workers to help manage daily challenges, enhance prayers and meditation, and measure the steps to your graduation from Earth schoolroom. I don't know if when you read the Kabbalah, but when I read the Kabbalah, I knew exactly which one of those steps I was on. And it was kind of surprising because I had no way of co-measurement before that. So you can become an apprentice to our compassionate creator and learn the skills inherent to using these precious tools. Join us. We're going to discover today how God uses Sefirot in his creation, how you can use them, and what not to do with them. So we're also going to hear some sephirotic secrets of Adam and Eve. I'm anxious to hear about those. I know nothing about them. So Anne Bethel has been a keeper of the flame since 1985. She was born in England and happened to be on a street called Camelot. She's now in Bendigo, northwest of Melbourne, Australia, and has lived and traveled extensively throughout Ireland, Europe, and the Middle East. She also lived and worked with the Bedouins in Arabia and has been a nurse in the wilds of Papua New Guinea. Anne gives frequent Zoom presentations to groups in Australia and New Zealand based on her in-depth knowledge of Kabbalah. And in the 90s, she presented Elizabeth Clare Prophet with a large chart of the I Am Presence that she embroidered. I would love one of those, wouldn't you? And she's a much-loved grandmother to a large extended clan of children of all ages. I hope you got our handout that we sent out yesterday. And Anne, we welcome you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We just got a couple of things to do here, just to share the screen, technical things before we get started.
Okay.
And yeah, and whoops. Okay, just bear with me for just a second. Slideshow. Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about God's tools of action and using the tree of life in Kabbalah. Now, Elizabeth Clare Prophet said those who wrote the scriptures were inserting verbal puzzles that could only be solved by those who had all the pieces, and some of those pieces can only be found in Kabbalah. And just a little bit of refreshment and explanation for those who've not been with us before is that Ein Sof is another name of God. And Ein Sof, when he wanted to make more of himself, created 10 Sefirot. Excuse me just a minute while we get a pointer. And the 10 Sefirot, he needed somewhere to put them. So he arranged areas in which to put them. He had the females on one side and the males on another. And in the middle, an area of equilibrium and balance. Ein Sof extruded some of his own essence to create the first Sefirot. And we call this the order of emanation. So the first one was called Keter, the second one Hokmah, and the third one was Binah. And these were directly emanated, or if you would like, extruded from the essence of Ein Sof. So Keter, when Keter was emanated, Keter then emanated Hokmah, who then emanated Binah. And when the two...
Anne, excuse me, I don't think you're sharing your screen.
No,
oh.
you're not.
Am I not? Oh,
no,
sorry.
We're seeing you, a beautiful picture of you.
Beg your pardon, people. Just hang on a minute. I just need to end the show.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so we've got Elizabeth Clare Prophet, we right now?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry about that, folks. We did rehearse it previously, but got too excited. I beg your pardon. So now we're back onto that screen there, and and as I said before, the other name of God is Ein Sof. When Ein Sof wanted to make more of himself, to increase his being, he wanted to create 10 Sefirot. Well, actually, the first thing he created was light, but he had nowhere to put it, so he put it to one side, and then he could create the 10 Sefirot. And he had somewhere to put them, so he created a female place, a male place, and somewhere in between. Kabbalah calls them columns. And as he created each one of the Sefirot, he placed them in the various columns. So the first one in the order of emanation was Keter, the second one Chokmah, and the third one Binah. As he emanated Keter, a part of his essence was in Keter. So you will read further down that Keter is a part of Ein Sof, and Ein Sof is a part of Keter. But Keter himself then emanated Binah, and Binah emanated, Chokmah, then Chokmah emanated Binah. The two of them came together in a meeting place called Dahat. Now, Dahat is not a Sefirot, but it is a meeting place. And when these two came together, then Binah emanated the remaining 7 Sefirot. So from Binah came Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Neshach, Hod, Yesod, and Malkut. So those 7 are called Binah's children. And the order of emanation is God's tools that he used in creation. How he used them in creation was that he used them en masse as a unit of all 10, but specific things had specific areas. For example, Chokmah emanated and it was responsible for the creation on the second day of the temporary angels. He was also responsible for the bringing into being of the elementals, not the elements, but the elementals. And on the 4th day, other angels were created from Chokmah, and those were the angels that had names. So sometimes the Sefirot was given a specific task, but generally they were used together. And each one of the Sefirot donated, if you would like, a little bit of mercy, a little bit of beauty, and not necessarily judgment there and then, but the power of Gevurah there. And that was how he used them in creation. Chokmah, and to maintain and care for his creation. So once he'd created them, he then continues to use, to this day, the Sefirot to be able to care for his creation. That's us. And our inheritance is that he left us these tools to get back to him. Now that is called the order of emanation. 1, 2, 3, and then from Binah, the 7 children. But there is something else happening here too, and that's called the flow of God's energy or essence, which is quite different to the purposes of emanation. So these are a shell, and within the shell is God's essence. Now flowing through them is going to be God's light, and God's light flows through them in the order of 1, 2, 3. So it goes through Keter, Chokmah, Binah, and that light then travels to Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Neshach, Hod, Yesod, and Malkut. The flow of light is facilitated because the Sefirot are both male and female. They are female when they receive energy from the previous Sefirot, and they are male when they give energy. So Chokmah here, when he receives from Keter, he is actually acting in a female role because he's receiving the energy from Keter. But when he gives it to Binah, he's acting as a male, even though he's on the male column. And this facilitates energy in a constant flow down to Malkut, and we are down below here. We receive that energy, God's energy, from Malkut. If it was to stop, even for a second, we would cease to be. So we know that there's a trickle coming down the whole time because we are here. And one of the ways that we have of going back to God, sorry, I forgot the hat there, that's our meeting place. It's not a Sefirot, it's a meeting place, particularly for Binah And for Hokmah, they come together in Dahat, but also for Keter and Tiferet, they come together in Dahat too. And Dahat is known for knowledge. So from Malkut up to Dahat, that is the tree of knowledge. The tree of life is the entire 10 Sefirot, but within the tree of life is the tree of knowledge, which of course has relevance in the Garden of Eden. But when we want to go back to Ein Sof, we can grasp Malkut. And by grasping and holding on to Malkut, because she is the first one we see, then a wonderful thing happens. All of the Sefirot tremble and they all quiver in excitement. Mankind is coming. And they get so excited that Binah comes to Dahat, Hokmah comes to Dahat, and Binah is fire, Hokmah is water, and from the fire of Binah, a wonderful veil is sent down to mankind to protect them. That veil is called the Chasmal. And it's said that she cloaked herself in a fiery mantle and encircled herself in a fiery wall, which is, of course, what we read in Decree 1501. And then it could be our tube of light. The fire that they're talking about could be the violet fire. But when we grasp Malkut, it causes this reaction within the chart. An action from below motivates an action from above, and it brings down all of this energy and this protective garment. This is God's toolbox. Well, it's our toolbox at the moment, but we're going to make it God's toolbox by adding to the toolbox the Sefirot. So we have Keter, and just hang on a tick. Hokmah. Thank you. We have Hokmah and Binah, Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Nekshak, Hod, Yesod, and Malkut. And there's our 10 Sefirot. It doesn't really matter where we put them in the box, as long as we recognize that they are tools and they are in the box. And over here we have oil, or if you would like, God's essence, to lubricate our tools and to flow through our tools and then down to Malkut, and from Malkut down to us here. So we have two things happening in the Sefirot. We have the physical presentation, but it's not physical, it's finite, not physical, but we have the shell encasing God's essence, and then we have, God's light, and then we have the essence, the light that flows through us. When we use one Sefirot by itself, it's very powerful. But when we use all 10 together, then we have the multiplication of 10 times 10, which is the power of using 100 Sefirot. That's why God used them all together when he made his creation. Now, this is a saying written by Isaac Luria, and it's found in the book of the Barher. Now, the Barher is the oldest text in Kabbalah that we have. The second oldest one is the Sefirot, which was written by Abraham, and the third one is the Zohar, which was compiled as a compilation of texts by Moses de Leon. But Isaac Luria was a rabbi who was in Safat, which is in Israel, Safed, and this is something he wrote about God's purpose in creation. And he said, when it arose in his will to create the universe, to bestow good on his handiworks that they may recognize his greatness and become a worthy vehicle for the supernal, to cleave to him. And in writing it in that fashion and in saying it using the power of the spoken word, then we've actually used all 10 Sefirot, because every time we talk about his will, it's Keter. Every time we talk about creation, it's Hokmah. Every time we talk about bestowing good on his handiwork, that's Binah, the mother. And become a worthy vehicle, that's the next 6 Sefirot all working together to cleave to him, as we learned in the previous slide. That's Malkut. You cleave to Malkut. So in simply saying that one particular saying, you use all 10 Sefirot. And there are many, many sayings. The 23rd Psalm, there are many, many sayings that incorporate the entire 10 Sefirot. And that's another way of using them, of bringing them together to use the power of understanding of God's purpose. Every awakening from below motivates an awakening from above. And the Sefirot are rather like a postman. We can send prayers and messages and things like that to the Sefirot, and they will deliver them to God, and vice versa. God will deliver messages to us through Netshak and Hod, which are the two Sefirot to do with prophecy, for example. So we can look at the Sefirot as postmen. Now, you don't worship the postman. You might be very grateful to him if he brings you lots of greeting cards, but you're not so familiar with him when he brings you a lot of bills, but you don't worship him. So we don't worship the Sefirot. One of the things we do not do is worship a tool, but we can use them. And that's what God wants us to do, to use them. Now we're going to have a look at Adam. And Adam in the Kabbalah and in the Old Testament, there are several Adams. There's Adam Kadmon, Adam El Elyon or Ilya, which is the same thing, Adam Harishon or Adam of Eden, and those two are the same too. So we'll have a look at Adam Kadmon, and this here is Adam Kadmon. This is a complete set of 10 Sefirot with Tahat to give some orientation to it. And Adam Kadmon was comprised of the 10 Sefirot. Now, originally when the 10 Sefirot were created, some of them broke. The only one that didn't break completely was Malkut, and we'll come back to that shortly. But the 10 Sefirot kept breaking, and when Ein Sof managed to get 10 of them together that didn't break, he laid out a special cloth in front of him. And on that cloth, he arranged the Sefirot as you see them now. And the Kabbalists teach that that arrangement was Adam Kadmon. Because it was an arrangement and it kind of looked like a human body in a funny sort of way, the name was given Adam Kadmon. In Hebrew, that means the first one. Adam Kadmon is a spiritual, androgynous being comprised of 10 balanced Sefirot wrapped up in a spiritual envelope. There's no way I could draw that or put that onto a slide. I thought it wiser just to leave it as it is. The man on the throne in Ezekiel's vision was Adam Kadmon. And the God in whose image we are made is Adam Kadmon. We also have a set of 10 Sefirot like this, exactly the same. And the image of God in which we are made was not a physical image, but it was the image of Adam Kadmon. So the Kabbalah gives him a body. And that body is facing away from you so that you cannot see his face. And that is meant to be a spiritual body. Adam Elyon, which is the second one down here, was created like Adam Kadmon, a spiritual being made in the image of God, plus a holy soul that the Holy Spirit blew into his nostrils, and from which came all the souls that ever would be. Note the position of Malkut. Now, in some of the drawings, you'll see Malkut down here. And Kabbalah does teach that some of the times it's down here. But as Elizabeth Clare Prophet said, that El Moria had told her that Malkut should be over the base chakra. So there it is. Adam Elyon, well, first of all, before we just get into Adam Elyon, we'll just talk about why you see the back of this man and not the front. In the book of Exodus, there is a saying, "No man shall see my face and live." That's actually referring to Shekinah. The Shekinah glory no man can see, but at the moment of death, Shekinah comes with 3 angels, Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel, and sometimes Adam himself, to escort the soul to wherever it needs to go. So it says in Kabbalah, in death you will see, or in death of the physical body, in the transition, you will see things you cannot see when you were alive. That is what this is talking about. No man shall see my face, shall see Shekinah and live. Mark Prophet added, as man. Because if you see the face of God and you live, then you either become a God-man or you've perished. That's a quote from Elizabeth Clare Prophet, who told the story. So there's Adam Elyon back on our side of the chart here, just like Adam Kadmon, a set of 10 Sefirot, clothed in a spiritual body, but he has a soul, and that's the difference. Now, in Hebrew and Aramaic was the original language of the text, there is a word called tzela, usually translated as rib, but more accurately translated as side. So when Adam came to create Eve, the part of Adam, and when God came to create Eve, the part of Adam that was taken was not a rib, It was a side of Adam, and the side that was taken was his feminine side. It was Tiferet, a Sephiroth. Adam, Kadmon, plus a soul equals 10 Sefirot in a spiritual body. I've drawn and brought out Tiferet. This is number 6, Sefirot number 6, Tiferet, just there. And Tiferet, Adam's internal centers were under the influence of Hesed mercies because he's on the male column of those 3 columns that we had. And one day God said to Adam, Adam, extrude, expand your Tiferet. Remember, he's in a spiritual body, not a physical body. So Adam did. And he emanated his Tiferet to become a separate Tiferet, all by itself. From this was extended a beauty, and according to Isaiah, was separated as the head and the body of a woman with purple hair, Argaman. So there's the purple for the woman, who of course was Eve. And that Tiferet then became Eve's Tiferet, around which the other 9 Sephiroth were grown and emanated around that there, so that she then had a spiritual body, the same as Adam. But Eve's was governed by Gevurah, judgment, because she's on the physical, she's on the female column on the left-hand side of that chart. Now, Adam had 3 sins according to Kabbalah. The first one was Malchut. Now, Adam adored Malchut, but to the exclusion of the other 9 Sephiroth. He adored her so much, he took her from the tree. Elizabeth Clare Prophet said that that was nothing short of a cosmic catastrophe, because he completely unbalanced and upset that sephirotic tree, and it could no longer function as Ein Sof had intended, because Adam took Malchut. And there's more about that later in this slideshow. The second sin, alleged sin, was that he ate the fruit in the garden. Now, legally, he was entitled to eat that fruit, but only on the 8th day. Now, Adam was created on the 6th day, and the main aspect of his soul was given on the 7th day. Adam was told to wait until the 8th day before he ate the fruit, because then he would have been through 1 Sabbath and the initiations of creation. But he didn't wait. On the day that he was created, on the 6th day, he ate the fruit. Elizabeth Clare Prophet said that is nothing short of bald-faced disobedience. Also, Adam was complicit with in Eve's transgressions. Now, the temptations of Eve, according to Elizabeth Clare Prophet, can be charted on the threefold flame. The blue flame, the evil inclination, showed Eve that this was good for food and that they would make you wise because you would know better than anybody else. And it was very pleasant to the eyes. Adam was complicit in those temptations because he ate the fruit. And he also fell for the lies of the fallen ones, or the snake or the serpent, whichever way you put it. Only after then, oh, and there is Pearl, the forgiveness of Eve, which is, you can see the details there. And there is quite a lot of the story about what happened to Adam after that. Rabbi Haya reported, to this day, Adam rises and visits the patriarchs, their patriarchs are Adam, Isaac, and Jacob, twice a day in the Garden of Eden, and confesses his sins. Now, the year since Adam was created, the Jewish year now, is 5783. So allowing for the fact that Adam was probably about 83 years of age, I don't know, it means that for 5,700 years, Adam has been on his knees twice a day in the Garden of Eden, confessing to the patriarchs. We also know that Adam does appear to some people at death, as I've mentioned before. That's a story in its own right, which is too complicated to go into right now. But the point is, Adam is moving about up there, and obviously God has given him little jobs to do, like escorting Shekinah at the moment of death. And we still don't know exactly what the end story is with Adam. But we do know that Adam Elion, the spiritual Adam, became Adam Harishon with a physical body only after he had sinned. And that's the story of the 3 Adams. So when we want to climb up the tree, to go back to Ein Sof ourselves, this is General Sherman's tree. And as you will notice, it's got no branches down the bottom, but there's a lot of branches up the top. If we superimpose our tree of life on this, we could see at the top Keter, Hokmah, and Binah, and the other 7 really haven't got a place here. To achieve our goals, our daily tasks or long-term paths, a straight line is often the most expedient protocol. So we can make a beeline for Binah. We can go straight up to the top of that tree without going from the step to step to step, which is obviously a quicker and more direct way of doing it. And that's achieved through a meditation called running and returning. Now, Hokmah is wisdom, pure, non-verbal mind. This is like the nothingness of the Buddhist meditation, but it is the only portal with which we can see and visualize the Sefirot. So somehow or other, we have to get into this consciousness. And the best way to do it is through Binah. Hokmah says, what can I see at the back of my head? And the answer is nothing unless you have a mirror. Binah is the mirror that reflects Hokmah. She also sometimes acts as a pipe. This is Binah on the outside here. Hokmah is water. You can imagine the water going through the pipe. It's Binah who provides the pipe that directs the water to the part of the garden that needs it, or to the part of yourself that needs Hokmah's wisdom. Binah is the conduit, if you would like, and the mirror. Binah is understanding. She's the great mother. She gave birth to 7 Sefirot, but she is a verbal mind. She has speech and mantra, the power of the spoken word, and she has fire. And through there, we can reach, by using a mantra, we can reach to the level of Binah. And when we get to Binah, then we can use will to get to Hokmah. It's an impelling will. We concentrate on something that is normally beyond our grasp. And when we get across here, if you're anything like me, when I get across here, then I first think, I've done it. I'm here. I'm here. And of course, that is a thought. And immediately you are returned to Binah because there are no thoughts in Hokmah. So the minute a thought creeps in, you're instantly returned. But it doesn't matter. You were there, you did it, even if it was for 1/100th of a second. Next time, it might be a whole second. And the time after that, it might be a minute, and so on. So we use this running, we run across and being returned. You accept that you're going to be returned because we are humans. We're not perfect yet. And this is a skill we are learning. So we run and we return, and we run and we return until we can get to stay in Hokmah consciousness. And then we can look down at the Sefirot. Then we can use the Sefirot. Then we can see them, we can work with them, and we can act with them. And that's making a beeline for Binah without going through the other Sefirot, the lower 7 Sefirot. We can also look at it this way. To understand with wisdom is to use Binah and Hokmah. And beyond that, we can perceive the essential nature of a thing or a subject, and thereby elevate that thing, paying positive attention to that one thing. Think of somebody with a green thumb. Think of how they go in their garden, how they talk to their plants, they stroke them, they make cuttings from them, they talk to them. And I apologize and give a little prayer if I've got to cut the mint for a mint salad, for example. Other people look and think, how do those plants grow? Well, one of the answers is that by concentrating on that plant and in the garden just there, you are elevating not only that plant, but also its elemental to a higher level. Okay, Mum, just checking out the sunflower. Look at the look of intensity. That's the concentration, that when you look at something, you lift that thing to a higher level. And you lift it to a higher level. And when you do that, you're able to draw down the spiritual essence, which is called Shefa. which can be channeled down to the physical and to bring about physical changes. And just to give you some examples of this, in Sfat, in the 2nd century, there was a rabbi called Rabbi Simeon ben Yochai, who was supposed to have been the original author of the Zohar. But also we know that Isaac Glorious did this. We also know Moses de Leon did this. And on a Friday night, which is the night before the Sabbath, they would use this system to create food which would be eaten on the Sabbath. Now, this was very special food. By concentrating on something, they may have brought down fishes or bread. And on certain occasions, it was a goat or a calf was brought down. And this was very special food because that goat and that calf had not trodden on the physical earth or drunk or fed from the physical earth, and therefore did not have to go through the rites of kosher to be consumed. So it was seen as a physical food which fed the physical body, but it was also a spiritual food which fed the spiritual self. They were co-creators with God, as indeed we all are when we do things God's way. An awakening from below by elevating, awakening by concentrating on the fishes, motivates an awakening from above, and the Shofar comes down to bring about physical changes within the world. Now we have the story of Mark. Now, years ago, when the first printing press arrived, it looked something like this. It wasn't this one, but this one is one of the same era, to show you the absolute size of it and the difficulty with it. The person who told me this story is the person who was pushing and trying to get this thing from the truck into the shed. The problem was it was going to rain and it must not get wet because all of this delicate mechanisms here would rust and they were very hard to clean. And the person who was telling me the story said they were pushing and shoving and it was great difficulty. This thing wasn't moving like it should have done. And Mark was way off in the trees up and he had his hands in front of him and he said it looked like he was pushing back the rain. But just as I had that thought, I thought to myself, if Mark could come down here and give us one hefty shove, we'd get this thing in really quickly. When a booming voice came down, will you lot hurry up? I can't hold back this rain forever, you know. Then the press went in pronto, followed by us, followed by Mark on the trot, and then the rain. Now, I don't know how Mark did that. I don't pretend to know how Mark did that. But what he did do, he recognized a need, as those rabbis did on the night before the Sabbath. He recognized a need and used spiritual forces to bring about physical changes, to hold the rain back just so that they could get that precious printing press into the shed. The Sefirot are only one of many possible methods that Mark had used. I'm just using this as an example to show you that you can bring down spiritual essence to bring about physical changes in the earth where you are right now with appropriate learning and appropriate practicing. We can also unite the Sefirot. Now, there is a profound significance of mystical devotion called Sod Hayud, and it's very special. And it comes about with enthusiastic, activating devotion in which the soul and mind are steeped down below. For example, our decrees, but not our decrees. Our dynamic decrees will do this. An ordinary decree is not dynamic unless you give it with enthusiastic, activating devotion. And when you do that, then up come the Sefirot and they unite and they head for their source, their hidden source. Remember we said that within Keter is Ein Sof and within Ein Sof is in Keter, two separate entities like the Tai Chi chasing each other's tails, but they are equally within Ein Sof and Keter in equal portions, but hidden within Keter. And that's where the Sefirot are going because of the enthusiasm, because of the mystical devotion just here. The Sefirot unite and can't wait to get back to the return to their hidden source, to Keter and Ein Sof. And the most beautiful thing about all of that is, as they go up there, they take us with them because we give the motivating force. We give the dynamic decree. We have that enthusiastic, activating devotion, and they all rush together, head for Keter, and they take us with them. Isn't that wonderful? An action from below, our decrees, motivates an action from above, the Sefirot get together. There's a perfect parenting plan too. Chokmah and Binah are perfect parents, and they come together in the position of Dahat, as we said before. There isn't really a line here. I've put that to differentiate from the top three, who were very special because they were direct emanations of God, and the bottom seven, who were Binah's children. So here we have Chokmah the father and Binah the mother, and they are called the archetype of forces of emanation because everything was emanated from Binah in the position of Dahat with Chokmah. Binah gave birth to the 7 children, but also when the letters were created, they were created by Malkut and Chokmah, but they came together in Binah as words. Binah created the first word, in the first word in the Hebrew Bible and in our Bible in Hebrew is Bereshit, and that means in the beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Binah created those words. There is a continuous attachment and delight between these two. They are friends. They are measured, consistent, deliberate, systematic. And their focus is on the family and children and upbringing. And this is the model that the rabbis taught the families, particularly when they were going through the desert and following Moses. They were initiated in the sephirotic tree after they came out of Egypt. And Moses taught them how to use this model. And that way, when there were disputes, they went to, are you doing this? And are you doing that, to bring them back to this model? And there is another relationship in the tree. Chokmah Binah is a horizontal relationship. It unites the male column, the female column, and the pillar of equilibrium. They're all united there, but there's another relationship, and that is Tiferet and Malkut. This is a special relationship just here. Tiferet means beauty. And the Song of Songs, the book that's in the Bible, is actually the song of Tiferet and his yearning for Malkut, who has been taken by Adam. Now, the Song of Songs, if you look at it and if you read it, and as you're reading it, you see Tiferet in there. Tiferet as the author, so to speak. He wasn't exactly the author, but the story is about Tiferet and Tiferet's story of his longing and his yearning. The Hebrew people in their prayers on a daily basis pray for the reunion of Malkut and Tiferet, because to this day they are not reunited. So Tiferet the father, Malkut the mother. And these are the forces of creation. The others were forces of emanation. These are the forces of creation and the soul. Theirs is not a continuous relationship. Theirs is a temporary desire. They are intermittent lovers caught in the entanglement of desire, lovers' passion, pleasure, and pain. And because it's not a continuous relationship is why it was so easy for Adam to take her. They are torn apart at the menses, and then Malkut is called the consort. And then there is a joyful, after the menses, after menstruation, there is a joyful reunion as the bride goes back to her husband, as the Leviticus says, clean and fresh. There is a delight of union, but there is also the burden of separation. Now, God said to Adam, I brought you into the garden so that you might bring an offering. The offering was to unite all the Sefirot through the union of Tiferet and Malkut. And within Malkut is Shekinah. Now, Shekinah is known as the soil, the heavenly soil, because she feeds all of the Sefirot and us. Shekinah is also known as the female potential of God, and Shekinah lives in Malkut. So when Adam took Malkut, he took the female potential of God. He took the heavenly soil. But you have blemished the altar so that an offering can no longer be brought. Shekinah is the heavenly soil. Because Adam spurned the opportunity to serve Shekinah, he was fated to till the earthly soil, and that's why he got that job. But as I said to you earlier, we do know that on certain occasions when Shekinah appears at the moment of the death of the physical body, sometimes Adam is with her. So Adam, we know, is now serving Shekinah. Isaac the Blind said, the only way to pray is by means of finite things, that is, the Sefirot, by which man may be received and raised in thought as far as Ein Sof. And there are two prayers here. This one is in your handouts. This one is a very special prayer. It contains both the names of God and the associated Sefirot, but more than that, the function. So we have Hokmon here, who is known for wisdom, and there is the name of God associated with them. It is this is a prayer that needs to be done after protection. We say this after we've done Archangel Michael's Rosary and before the sealing of Archangel Michael's Rosary. It's something that takes time, and I just don't have that time today. And here's a second one, a second prayer, which is Elizabeth Clare Prophet composed in 1992. And here it gives the imbalances of the Sefirot when we've caused these imbalances and how to replace them with the divine qualities of light. Again, I'll leave you to read those when you replay the video if you so choose to do that. Now, another way of using the tree of life is using them by separating them and putting all the male Sefirot on the male column and all the female Sefirot on the female column. So on the male column, we have the male Sefirot, Keter, Hokmah, Hesed, Tiferet, and Netshak. And on the female sphere, we have Binah, Gvura, Hod, Yesod, and Malkut. And that creates incredible tension in here. This is very important because Hokmah and Binah do not like being separated, no more than Tiferet and Malkut. And Hod and Netshak never act singly, they always act together. We have Alpha and Omega, Yin and Yang. They were never meant to be separated. There is powerful tension, and that powerful spiritual forces can be used as by us in this earth today. When I see the heavens and the work of your fingers, and 5 fingers of one hand contain 14 bones, the geometria value of yad, which is the Hebrew word for hand, we come across a situation whereby we can take the right hand and put the 5 male Sefirot on the right hand. Keter, Hokmah, Hesed, Tiferet, and Netshak. And in the left hand, we have Binah, Gvura, Hod, Yesod, and Malkut. This powerful spiritual tension, these powerful forces can be directed and channeled. They are called a mudra point. Mudra is the physical position you put your body into when you're saying a mantra. He founded the earth with his right hand and spread out the heavens with his left. So we know that Ein Sof used this method of separating the Sefirot to enhance that very powerful force to be used in creation and in various areas that he used it. Now, when you separate them like that, it becomes one of the most basic things that we use in our judgment call. When we have our right hand out, we're using the forces of Keter, Hokmah, Hesed, Tiferet, and Binah going out into the universe, out there, by the power of the call of our judgment call. And if we look at the left hand, we've got all our fingers curled up with Gvura touching Binah over our heart to protect it. That's how powerful these male Sefirot are, particularly when they're all together in one place. When we got into a taxi in Singapore, my husband Larry pointed at the dashboard and said, "Look, Annie, they've got a Buddha." And the taxi driver was very upset. He said, point at Buddha. Point at Buddha. Do you know what it's like to have a finger pointed at you? Because what Larry, my husband, was doing was he was pointing Hokmah, all the powers of creation, at Buddha. You cannot do that. It's very disrespectful. Now we know. But do you know how it feels to have a finger pointed at you? Well, during the First World War in England, 5 million posters were made, and they weren't really all that good, and they didn't do what they were supposed to do, but 10,000 of this one was made. It was so powerful that millions signed up. Lord Kitchener was asked why it was so powerful. He said, it is the call of compulsion. When that finger is pointed at you, when Gavura is coming your way, you are forced to act, whether that is to join up and join the armies, or whether it's to tear the poster to pieces, you are forced to act in some way. It was so successful that millions enlisted, and the Americans used it with Uncle Sam's picture to get people to sign up for the First World War. Mark Prophet is using the priestly blessing. I don't know whether his hands were coming up or down, but if his left hand was a little bit higher and his hands were out, that would be called the priestly blessing. And he's using, whether he knows it or not, the 10 Sefirot in the 10 fingers are going out and blessing those people in whose heads you can see in front of you. And this is called the prophecy position. This is Elijah in that position just there, praying for rain. And that is a very special position. These hands are not quite correct here. It's very special because Nekshak and Hod are found in their Sefirot, found in the knees, and in the head we have Keter. So here we have prophecy in the knees and the mind. That's why it's called the prophecy position. People would prophesy from this position. Hokmah and Bin are in the shoulders, plus to understand with wisdom, and in 10 fingers and 10 toes, and they all contain Sefirot. So the prophecy position brings together all forces into play, 10 fingers, 10 toes, plus 2 covenants, the covenant of the tongue and the covenant of the sexual organ. And they comprise the 22 elements paralleling the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, with which he can write in the spiritual realm. Now, circumcision of the tongue is not so well known as the sexual organ circumcision. When Moses was told by God to go and let my people go when he was in Egypt, Moses said to him, "But Lord, my lips are uncircumcised." What it refers to is the power of speech, not necessarily the physical organ. Although we have a disease today called being tongue-tied, and the doctors can snip a little membrane underneath the tongue called the frenulum, it's not really to do with that. It's to do with the ability to speak, the ability of Moses. He felt that he didn't have the talents necessary to go to Pharaoh and bargain, if you would like, or tell the Pharaoh to let my people go. So he said, my lips are uncircumcised. The 2 organs of circumcision are therefore the tongue and the sexual organ. The 22 together are very powerful because then the person can write in the spiritual realm. This is the perfect position. And this, as you can see, the hands just here are crossed. And here you've got the same thing, 10 toes, 10 fingers, and the tongue and the sexual organ. And this is a flyer for a pain management clinic in Switzerland. And they found that this position relieved pain. So this is your DIY analgesia. And when you bring your hands together, when you say Amen, you are reuniting the Sefirot. Bringing our hands together, the 10 Sefirot are engaged. And remember, you can sit with your feet facing each other, and that's even more powerful for the feet too. So now we're just going to look at the covenant of the Magi, which in El Moriah's toolbox. Father, into thy hands I commend my being. Take me and use me, my efforts, my thoughts, my resources, and all that I am, in the service to the world of men and to thy noble cosmic purposes yet unknown to my mind. Teach me to be kind in the way of the law that awakens men and guides them to the shores of reality, to the confluence of the river of life, to the Edenic source, that I may understand that the leaves of the tree of life given to me each day are for the healing of nations, that as I garner them into the treasure of being and offer the fruit of my loving adoration to thee and thy purposes supreme, I shall indeed hold covenant with thee as my guide, my guardian, and my friend. Allowing to me, I beg your pardon, thou art the directing connector, who shall establish within my life stream those heavenly contacts, limited only by the flow of the hours, who will establish me to perform in the world of men the most meaningful aspect of my individual life plan, as conceived by thee and executed in thy name by the board of spiritual overseers, karmic board of spiritual overseers, who under thy holy direction do administer thy laws. So be it, O eternal Father, and may the covenant of thy beloved Son, the living Christ, teach the only begotten of the light, teach me to be aware that he liveth today in the triunity of my being, as the great mediator between my individualized divine presence and my human self, that he raiseth me into the Christ consciousness and the divine realization, in order that as the eternal Son becomes one with the Father, so I may ultimately become one with thee, in that dynamic moment when out of union is born my perfect freedom to move, to think, to create, to design, to fulfill, to inhabit, to inherit, to dwell, and to be holy in the fullness of thy light. Father, into thy hands I commend my being. There are 33 connections between Sefirot and that decree. There's the bibliography. And we thank you, beloved El Moria, Guru Ma, and Lunello. And our Moria told us that a twinkle of mirth is needed on earth. And I just will take 30 more seconds of your time to give you that twinkle of mirth. Happy birthday, Linda, child of the light. Ascended Master Funway said, the consciousness that is with you is the essence of God's own light. Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Patricia, over to you.
Thank you. I was waiting for Linda to respond.
Did I do it in time?
I was so shocked. I didn't say anything. Thank you, Anne.
I didn't mean to shock you. You're welcome, Joy.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Questions and comments for Anne?
All struck dumb.
I know. Robin.
That was great, Anne. That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
It was wonderful, and I took the shots of a lot of things as you were talking, and I'll do it again, probably again and again, and get that more cemented in my mind. But I thought it was a wonderful overview for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else felt that, but I got a gist that was just really profound.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Elmora.
Yes.
You know, Anne, I have a question. I don't know how to put the hand up. But anyway, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Thank you very much first. Thank you. That was very good. I have a question. You spoke about the running and returning meditation to get to Binah. So how do we find that one?
Well, you go to Binah by using a mantra of your choosing. I'm a being of violet fire, I'm the purity God desires, or just a Om Mani Padme Hum. That's how you get to Binah. But then when you're running and returning to Hokmah, then that's when you use the impelling will to get to Hokmah. To get to Binah is relatively simple, and wouldn't say easy, but very, very relatively simple, by using that mantra and then using it over and over again until you get to Binah. You can find it in a book called Safai Yuritsa, which was written by Abraham. And he's put it in great detail in that book there. It's in the bibliography.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Robin, you got your hand up.
I wanted to ask Anne if there's a yoga pose to help you go to sleep and you put your feet together like that. Is it?
Yes.
Is that the same place like the
Yes.
master? Thanks, Anne.
Absolutely. That's uniting the Sefirot, Robin. Bringing you peace. The same as the prophecy position, by uniting the Sefirot, it acts as an analgesia. A sleeping position is exactly the same. You're uniting the Sefirot with hands and feet.
Ah,
To a calm place. Wow. Carlton, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes. Are the Sefirot any more accurate or better to use than the chakras?
Some of them are the same as the chakras. Elizabeth Prayer Prophet, and the colors that I use the colors of the chakras because she melded them together and she puts them together, but they are on a higher vibration than the chakras. The chakras are in our etheric body, but the Sefirot are the next level down from God. God created 4 universes, and the Sefirot are in the highest universe, which is called Absolute. And the chakras are way, way below them in a different vibration in our own etheric body. So they are very similar. They work very similar together. They work in harmony, but they are eons apart in vibration.
Okay. I had another question quickly. Is there any particular reason why we don't recognize a lot of the Jewish holidays or acknowledge the Jewish holidays, or are they at a lower level of vibration? We don't seem to speak of too much of the Jewish religion other than the Kabbalah.
Yes, that's a good point, and I thank you for asking that, Carlton, because it's a good point. But most of the Jewish festivals and holidays, as you're talking about, are not recognised in our society as in the Western society. I think simply because of ignorance. I don't think there is a real excuse for it. Maybe it's just something that just didn't carry across. Kabbalah, because of its mysticism, whereas the festivals and things like that, apart from Sukkot, the festival of Sukkot and the Shemitah on the 8th day of Sukkot is recognised by some of the people. And we certainly in Australia have the Jewish holidays mentioned, and they are on our calendar, but we don't necessarily celebrate them as such. But I don't think there is a genuine reason why. I think we could do more of that. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rosalinda.
Yes, thank you, Anne. That was wonderful. I was wondering if you saw the tree of life, that diagram superimposed upon a human face. I once saw a diagram, somebody who was studying zoology, and when I saw it, it really moved me just seeing that that tree of life superimposed over your facial features.
I haven't seen that, Rosalinda. I couldn't comment on that. I'm not familiar with that. I am a trained naturopath. I do use zoology, or I did when I was practicing, but I didn't use the Kabbalah with that. So, something I haven't seen. So thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
Yeah, I was just wondering, this talk about the Kabbalah, why we don't seem to have enough attention put on it in, our everyday summit kind of path. I was wondering too whether it has the same kind of vibration, or does it contain the vibration of the golden age, of the new age? It seems to be very mystical. It has got a lot of esoteric foundation and teaching, but I feel possibly there needs to be a moving forward, or maybe a re-examining of the power that's actually in there. Because when you study, for instance, when I study the Climb the Highest Mountains sort of series books one by one, a little bit, you feel wow, the power in the words and in the concept. And that's where I think the Kabbalah and the teachings of the Jewish tradition seem to be very full. But I feel, I don't know, just anybody else, but now I'm examining what I'm feeling. It feels that it needs to move forward. It needs to go forward to a newer dispensation or something like that. I don't know. That's just my feeling about it. Any comments from you, Anne?
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we know that in Kabbalah they do talk about not the golden age; they call it the world to come, and we know that in the creation story, that one of the reasons the Sefirot broke was because there was too much light, and God cut it back to 1/7 of what was available, and the 6/7, which were not used, were set aside for the world to come. And we also know that in Kabbalah, many of the rabbis thank Ein Sof and thank God for putting that light aside for the world to come. And I see that, yes, as the golden age, the world to come, because it's a spiritual world. It's a higher world than the world we are now. And it's a different vibration entirely. But because I think of the different languages, and the Kabbalah uses such floral language to describe things, that sometimes you've got to sort of separate all of the petals, so to speak, like the child looking at the sunflower, to get to the real essence of what it is and what they're saying. And I think there's a bit of confusion about Kabbalah because it is so mystical. But Elizabeth Clare Prophet said about all of those keys right at the beginning of her talk is that some of the keys can only be found in Kabbalah. In other words, they weren't released to the world until the world got to a certain stage and it was destined for those things to be released, but they were in Kabbalah. So by marrying Kabbalah to the teachings, we've got some of the keys there and some of the keys there. By putting them together, we've got a useful, well, we always had a useful thing in the teachings anyway. A more useful thing.
A more robust.
Yeah.
Maitri, let's see if we can get one more question. Maitri, you're muted. Please unmute yourself.
How does the 10 Sefirot relate to the 5 secret rays?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Oh, that's a good one. Well, in Kabbalah, they talk about the 7 Sefirot that Binah emanated, and 5 and 7 make 12. So when they look at the 12 as a whole, they have a little section for things which have 5 in them. I've always thought that that was to do with the 5 secret rays, but I don't know. But there is a section within Kabbalah that does talk about the 5 this and the 5 that, and it does seem to me they are very similar to the 5 secret rays. But I honestly don't know, because the functions of them are very similar. Not the names are entirely different, but the functions of them. I think most of the things that we have can be found in Kabbalah. It's just the looking for them that's the difficult thing, and recognizing them when you find them. Yeah, but thank you for that question. That's a good one. Thank you.
I feel it has got a clue with our 5 fingers, so I tend to work it out.
In Chinese medicine, you've got the 5 elements and all sorts of things like that, and Lao Tzu and all of those teachings, very similar.
Well, thank you, Anne. This is very rich and very provocative and profound, and I hope that it will propel us all into practicing our spirituality in a different and more effective and comprehensive way. I know it will for me. Thank you so much. It was beautiful. And lots of good questions. And before we get to clapping for you, which we're going to do in a second, I'd like to invite you all back next month on the 3rd Sunday. And I'm not sure what the topic will be, but we will have probably Patrick Dennehy with us. So God bless, God love, and Happy New Year and happy birthday, Linda. And thanks again, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anne.